What's up, y'all? This is a conversation I had with Anthony Campolo. Anthony is a developer advocate for the open source project, RedwoodJS. If you're interested in getting involved in open source, one of the best ways to do it is by writing up tutorials and doing screencasts and the sharing publicly about the project. As a bootcamp student, Anthony did all this, and eventually that led him to his first job. And we're 2 days into him having his first job as a developer advocate at StepZen. So just want to shout out to him and the conversation. Also, if you want to see his personal story and how he got here, we covered that briefly in this conversation, but we really focus on the tutorial of RedwoodJS, which you're going to walk through an entire introduction to how to build a Redwood blog. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But we do have another video on this channel, which is where Anthony actually talks about his story and how he, as a bootcamp student, started putting himself out there and got involved with the Redwood project. So there's 2 videos, but watch this one and then go watch the other one after this. But we have a guest, and I completely flubbed that because I was meant to do this and include my guest in the introduction. But yeah, Anthony, do you want to say hello and tell us why you're here?
Hey everyone, my name is Anthony Campolo. I'm a JC web dev. You've probably seen me around OpenSauce if you have been hanging out in OpenSauce. I tend to come on the streams and I drop links a lot, so that's kind of my main value add to this community is having the right links at the right time. And yeah, I am on the RedwoodJS core team as a developer advocate. And I also recently started working as a developer advocate at a company called StepZen, which is a serverless GraphQL company, which is kind of a little bit like Redwood is a bit of a serverless GraphQL framework, so it works out there. But yeah, I first got to know Brian from Jamstack Radio, and I kind of reached out to him saying, are you interested in kind of talking about Redwood? And he thought it was pretty cool. And then throughout our conversation, he was kind of impressed by my story as a boot camp student coming up and getting involved in open source and kind of pushing into that world even before kind of having a job or anything like that. And so he asked me to join the Open Source Contributors Summit and kind of tell my story there. And yeah, I've just been hanging out basically in the community since. I think it's really cool what Brian's doing here, and I'm passionate about a lot of the technology that he's working with and the stuff he's spinning around. So, and the community he's built is really fantastic. A lot of cool, supportive people here. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here and happy to talk Redwood or anything else people are interested in.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have you here as a guest now. You've been in the stream for quite a bit, and yeah, that podcast that we recorded probably August, maybe. Yeah. September-ish?
Yeah, that was probably, I think it might have been the beginning of September. I think I had already done the fauna article by then. That's kind of that's what I think it was kind of the pivot point in my Redwood journey, because right around when I wrote the fauna article was also when I started going to contributor meetings. So September 1st, and I gave my first meetup talk the day after the fauna article drops. September 1st, September 2nd was when everything happened.
Yeah, and I just wanted to shout out that you were, in addition to that, being on my podcast, you had mentioned the Open Source Contributor Summit as well.
I was promoted at my job.
Struggling to I've got
videos.
Yeah,
it's open source. It's not BDuggy.
Yes, it is. Let's see. Yeah, I was trying to find that link. Here we go, and we'll probably find you rather quickly. You've got a bass guitar. There we go. Yeah, so yeah, folks, if you're interested in seeing Anthony talk about his story and how he sort of got to where he is today, and also you have, how many of those shirts do you have in that color?
This is a different one. This is yeah, no, what was funny is, so all those videos, you also notice have a different background. I was living in Colorado with my sister for 8 months, and I had one button-up shirt while I was there. So if you watch any meetup talk I gave for the last 3 months, I have that same blue shirt on.
That is awesome. Amazing. And I'm glad you can honor us with a new shirt.
Yeah.
But we didn't actually come to talk about your clothing choices. We came to talk about Redwood. So I figured we could just jump right in. You just give us an introduction to what is Redwood, sort of how you sort of got connected as well. Because you talked about how you got connected with me, but I'm curious of how you got connected with that group as well.
Yeah, Redwood is a full stack serverless framework for the Jamstack. So there's a lot of buzzwords in there that you may or may not be familiar with. The real idea being that it's a whole front end project. So you have both a front end and a back end. And the front end is a bit like a Create React app or like a Gatsby or a Next app. And then the back end uses GraphQL and Prisma, which like is an ORM kind of thing, to give you this full stack application. So there's a lot of tech, like you may not have known like half those terms I just used. That's okay. We're going to go over all of it kind of throughout the course of this talk. It's hard to give like a high level definition of it, but really it's about enabling front-end developers to have more back-end power. That is really how I think of it, is that it's enabling someone who already knows React but may not know a lot about, say, Postgres or anything like that, can still get a project going with a Postgres database that is easy to use and easy to work with and easy to think about.
Excellent. Yeah, and I'm all about sort of the simplicity of getting started. My introduction was Rails. Some people know this, some people don't know this, but I've talked about it enough. But yeah, Ruby on Rails was my introduction, and like I know Tom, who kind of got this thing kickstarted, and I guess would you call him a founder or maintainer or creator?
Yeah, so there's this is a good question. There's what we call the founding team now and the core team. So the founding team is Tom Preston Warner, Peter Pistorius, Rob Cameron, and David Price. Really, it was Peter and Tom who were kind of the core who like really created this, because they were building a language learning platform called Chatterbug and working with React and GraphQL and talking to a Rails backend. Because as you mentioned, Tom, old school Rails developer, he built GitHub with Ruby on Rails. And so once him and Peter started putting together this like new front end JavaScript framework kind of thing, they brought on their friends Rob and David to be like the core. I call them the Fab Four. And then they eventually expanded out to now a dozen people on the core team and a couple dozen extra contributors as well, and then probably a couple hundred users.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so I wanted to just like get started in trying Redwood JS. I've heard of it, and it's funny because normally when I have folks on the podcast, like I build a small tool. I never actually got around to building anything with Redwood. I just sort of this whatever in my head passed me by. Like I had BlitzJS on, and I built something with them, but I haven't built anything with Redwood. So it's a perfect opportunity for me to try this out. So I did see that there's like a start the tutorial, which I think you're going to help talk me through this. But I did want to... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing kind of like my own kind of condensed version of the tutorial. We should definitely spend a second just talking about the tutorial and why the tutorial is so important to the project. RedwoodJS is actually pioneering something they're calling tutorial-driven development. It's kind of a play on README-driven development, which is just this idea that as developers, we always put the code first and think of the code first. And, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, because if the code doesn't work, then, the code doesn't work. Like that is the main thing that matters. But if you emphasize that over things like docs and you just say like, okay, docs are like a nice to have, that's a problem. And so they have done a lot of work to really emphasize the importance of not only good docs, but a good tutorial that is going to walk someone through how to build a project in a way where they actually learn the framework by building the project. So it's actually, I think, really kind of revolutionary in terms of what it's doing in terms like how to design a programming curriculum. And this is entirely what got me into it in the first place. Like, well, actually, podcasts got me into it in the first place. I heard Tom basically on a handful of podcasts where he talked about Redwood, and I'm a very passionate both podcast listener and now also podcast guest and podcast host myself. I try to do as much podcasting as I possibly can, is my natural state. And it's very much, so he explained it on podcasts, and then I was like, okay, this sounds kind of cool. I want to check this out. And so I started doing the tutorial, and by going through the tutorial, it was a revelation for me in terms of like what I was able to learn by going through it, and then what I was able to build at the end, having learned the things that I learned in it. So I'm going to give you basically kind of like my own home-rolled version of the tutorial, because if we went through the whole thing, it would take probably a little too long. I usually cut out like building the contact form and the auth section, but the kind of the most important pieces of the architecture we'll be able to cover here.
Okay. Excellent. So yeah, let's jump in. So I did find a quick start. I assume, is it similar to? Do I need the Create Redwood app? Or this is
yes, that's what you're gonna do. Yeah, that's gonna build out your basic project, and we'll just create it for you. Yeah.
Okay. And well, I was gonna change the name. Actually, I should probably change the folder because I'm in the home directory. and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I think if you do // it'll create a directory with the name that you give it instead of just flopping it. Actually, yeah, I'm not really sure, 'cause that's what it used to be. I didn't realize that changed recently, actually.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to change this to open source Redwood, just so I know what this is. All right.
That's usually how I name things. It'll be the name of the event and the thing I build. So it'll be like Mint Bean Redwood or Mint Bean Knox. I do a lot of Mint Bean talks.
Yeah, so
as you can see right now, we're on version 0.23. We are aiming for V1 within the end of Q1. So hopefully within the next couple months, we're going to be like really getting out there. So if you haven't heard us making much noise yet, just wait.
Excellent. And I'm curious, so what is it installing right now? Like, what sort of am I getting out of the box with Redwood?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. So much like Rails, Rails is just like a pile of libraries glommed together, and that's kind of what Redwood is to a certain extent. It's not really doing anything super revolutionary for you in that respect, so much as they went through the process of vetting all these different kind of React libraries and then deciding whether to build or buy, kind of not necessarily buy, but whether to build things themselves. They built their own router. So there's a router, there's React hook forms, there's the Prisma client, there's the Apollo client, there's the Apollo server, there's like all these things. You don't necessarily need to know about all of these things. That's like part of the point, is that you don't need to have to figure out what all these different libraries are, but you eventually do want to learn those things, because otherwise you're going to start hitting roadblocks and not know what the abstractions are doing. But as we're learning, as we're getting started, like, you don't need to think about Apollo. Like it's not really a concern to you.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and I keep talking about Rails because you talk about Tom and his background creating my employer, literally GitHub, but also like the Rails conventions, like convention over configuration. So like I came up on, through the world of Webpack. We had to know how Webpack worked to actually get React working the way you want it to work, or if you had to do something special or combine data management, which is fine. But now today, all the young kids out there, which is not that long ago, but no one really needs to know how Webpack works today. Like even Create React App abstracts that for you quite a bit. So
we never covered Webpack at all in my boot camp, because we just started with Create React App essentially, which I'm not sure if that's necessarily the right approach, because I feel like not really knowing what Webpack does. It's the same thing with not knowing the abstractions Redwood is built on. I think no matter what, you're eventually gonna have to dive into Webpack at some point in your life, until we all move to Snowpack.
Yeah, until we do that, and which is again. I did a boot camp too as well, and I didn't actually. It's funny because I didn't actually need to know Webpack either or tools to that level. I just went directly to Rails, and then I was able to ship stuff. And then there was this weird shift where everybody just had to learn everything, which made it almost impossible for boot camp students to really get traction unless you knew to ignore what everybody was saying and just do it. It's funny because I did a newsletter today, in my newsletter, talking about how I grew my career through Netlify, not just as an employer, but as just a user. And it's all about folks at that time were saying in boot camps, you need to learn AWS. You need to understand all the ins and outs of it. And nowadays, you don't need AWS. You could do Fargate or Amplify or Netlify or all these other things that have abstractions over the sort of down in the ditches connecting wires and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we did learn Netlify I wouldn't necessarily learn Netlify so much as when we had our build weeks, they said, go deploy your projects. So most people found Netlify. But I had a weird thing where my NPM was broken for the first 2 months of my boot camp, so I couldn't develop locally. So what I would do is I'll build all my projects in Code Sandbox and then deploy it to Netlify, and then that's how I would show my projects.
Yeah, everybody who just came in for the raid, we got to take a little bit of a break too as well. Cool. Yeah, we just had a raid of 25 folks come from Retromo. Folks, we are actually learning RedwoodJS today from a Redwood expert here, Anthony Campolo. Anthony, I failed to put your name on the screen, but folks, you can find them probably pretty easily if you look for Redwood Developer Advocate. But Retromo, let us know what you were working on. Oh, Retro MMO. My bad. I actually saw your name and with the proper camel case. So, but yeah, let us know what y'all are working on, and if you're interested in learning about full stack React or full stack Jamstack at this point. So I opened up the project folder itself. I'm getting a lot of.
We probably shouldn't mess with the Redwood IDE. The Redwood IDE is still kind of being worked on. It is going to revolutionize the way people work with Redwood apps, but we're not quite there yet. So let's not mess with the Redwood IDE yet. But that's, if anyone wants to help build an IDE, and that sounds exciting to you at all, that is something that would be very, very interesting to you. If you're interested in language servers or anything like that.
Yeah, well, what was interesting is that sort of just appeared. I'm not sure if they have integrations with VS Code. Like if there's a .container folder or something like that. But yeah, that was the recommendation that just showed up when I opened up the Redwood folder. So, here you go, VS Code. All the recommended JSON. Yeah, so anyway, this is not a VS Code session, but yeah, I find that super fascinating that it installed these extensions for me by default.
Yeah. Cool. So let's just kick off our dev server now that we already got this going. So you'll just want to CD into your project.
Yep.
And
which I'm there right now.
Yep. And then all of our commands are going to be using yarn. So they'll start yarn space and then RW, which is the alias for Redwood. You can type the full word Redwood if you want, but not really much reason to.
Okay.
And then space and then DEV, which is just short for dev. And then I'll kick off our development server on localhost 8910. And it also kicks off a graphical editor on 8911. But we'll wait till we actually have some data to query before getting into that.
So cool. And also just pointing out, I did nothing except this sort of yarn create Redwood app. I did open source Redwood, but this now gives me a full site.
Project.
Yeah.
CD this project, pop it open. This is what everyone will see.
Nice. Excellent. So yeah, what's next?
Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start learning some Redwood CLI commands to generate pieces of our project. So you're going to want to keep your other terminal running and then pop open another one. Probably in VS Code will be the easiest way to do that, just in terms of people being able to see what's happening.
Yep. And whoops, I don't want to live share. What's the command for
Command J?
Command J. Got it. You know, where were you when I was fumbling with VS Code? Folks, VS Code is not my normal editor. I only use VS Code on stream because I'm forcing myself to learn it. Okay, so I got the terminal up, and what's the next command you said to run?
Yeah, so actually, before we start, let's actually first, because we're going to deploy this to the internet, so let's first initialize a Git repository and get this up on a Git repo. That's actually a good step to get out of the way first.
I think I have the GitHub CLI. Oh, nope. GH init. Okay, well, I don't remember what the GitHub CLI is to create the GitHub repo. But
yeah, I know how to do it just with Git. If you want to just do that.
Yep.
So you just git init.
Yep. And then I'll git add everything.
Add everything and commit everything. And there's already git ignore file that'll handle all the stuff you don't want to git commit.
Oh, it looks like my pizza did not generate in the... Try that one more time. No. It didn't work. And then I'll create a new repo too as well.
Yeah, and then I just do the git remote add origin from the one you create and then push to your main.
Yeah, so the CLI command, there is a CLI command to do this automatically. And I probably should have, again, the CLI is probably something I'm going to probably start using more often.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that because it's one of those things like I'm scared of abstracting more of Git away because Git is already so scary and such a black box to people that I like showing these steps particular because I feel like this is an important thing for people who aren't super comfortable with Git to see how you add things to the stage area, how you commit them, how you push them, how you do that whole thing. Yeah,
so I'm curious with your knowledge that you have as a junior dev that you're starting your first job, that curiosity and that fear of Git, do you think we're moving away from the need to actually know Git like that intensely?
Oh, no, not at all. I think Git is more important than ever. And Git is the single most important tool that a developer is ever going to learn.
Okay. Yeah, I'd agree too as well. And but also, I don't know, from where I sit, I feel like there's more and more abstractions on top of Git. There was
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like we're already so comfortable with Git the way it is. So this is also why I'm scared of just changing things. But yeah, if we could have nicer abstractions that still let people know what Git's actually doing, then like, yeah, I'm all about that. So like, yeah, I'm definitely curious to give the GitHub CLI a try, because it sounds like you're moving in the right direction. As long as you're not obfuscating Git, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, there's this one thing that I know it's coming up down the road is where most people, when you first sign in with GitHub, you type in your password on the command line. We're removing that coming up, and that's going to be very challenging because most people only use the command line and use passwords and not SSH. So one thing that you could do is actually JH off, which is a way you could set up an SSH tunnel for your GitHub.
See, that's cool, because I have had issues with authenticating on the command line with Git in the past. So that's a serious use case right there.
Yeah, so that's one of the nice parts about using the CLI is that you can, some of the GitHub flavored things that make it are kind of hard to do on the CLI, we're making easier and interact with that. So think about like building new integrations or creating tokens and stuff like that, doing from command line rather than going through the actual the GUI. But with that said, I did create a repo, got this pushed, and here we go. I unfortunately did not get my emoji in there though.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. I'll get an issue open for you.
Yeah, I think it's actually a VS Code thing.
So yeah, cool. So we're not going to really do anything with that at all. We're just, once we've built out the whole project, at the end we'll push all of our changes up, and then we'll just be set up to deploy. But I like getting that out of the way at the beginning.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, good idea, because if we messed up, we can at least go back and fix it with version control.
Yeah, it's almost like having Git to commit with as atomic commits is like a useful practice.
Yeah.
Great. All right, so now we're going to start doing our yarn Redwood generate commands. So get your terminal back up, and it's going to be, all these are going to start with yarn Redwood and then space and the letter G. So much like how you could type Redwood instead of RW, you can type generate instead of G, but not really much of a reason to.
Yeah.
And we're going to generate a page. So space and then the word page.
Yep.
And then space and then the word home. And then one more space and a /. So let me just walk through exactly what this is doing here.
Yeah.
This is going to generate a page. That page is going to be called home page. And that home page route is just going to be like the /, just like your home route. So when you have a website, you have ajcwebdev.com, they'll just be ajcwebdev.com /, like that's the home page. So that's what we're creating right now. So it's going to actually get rid of our splash page and replace it with the home page we're about to generate. So you can go ahead and run that command.
Okay. Very Rails-esque. I love it.
Yeah. And then it also creates a storybook and jest testing file, which we probably won't get into today. But if you wanted to, we come back on at some point. We actually just put out a second tutorial, which walks through the storybook and jest things in particular. So we're figuring out how to integrate like TDD into it. So going back to more Rails influence, getting more of that testing culture built into JavaScript, which I think is great, because that's another thing. Like I didn't learn testing really in the boot camp very much. He covered it for like 2 days, which is I was actually talking to Khalil from Apollo about this yesterday on Twitter, and he was like, he did 5 years of CS degree, and he said he got 0 days of testing. So I was like, well, I guess 2 is better than 0, but still.
Why do you need to test if you have a degree?
Yeah, right. It's like the code should work. I have a degree.
Yeah, but that's excellent. The storybook that gets generated too as well, because like, I don't know if you were on my stream a couple of weeks ago, where I actually generated.
I was thinking the whole time, I was like, "Ooh, this is like a thing that Redwood solved a while ago."
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge that I have right now, where I have open source it's a Create React app, but it's kind of obliterated all the scaffolding from Create React app to the point where now it's a React app that's on its own path, and like I am nostalgic, or not even nostalgic. I kind of want to adopt a framework for just that project, because I think I spend way more time trying to clean stuff up than trying to just like ship code or make new pages, because everything's built from scratch, because that's the way you had to do it when I started that project. So yeah.
Oh, hello to Henry in the chat, by the way.
Oh, Henry, what's up? Welcome, Henry. And yeah, Jason's also concurring. No one learns testing. It always works on my machine.
Yeah, we all learned testing the hard way, I think, by having broken programs.
So my question now is, I have a server running here, and I generated a new file. Do I need to end the server to see my updated page, or I answered my question? There it is, homepage.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, so that's what was generated for us.
Yeah.
As well, can you make your text a little bit bigger?
Yeah.
And then if we want to, then what I like to do is I like to then take this, zoom it all the way over to the right, and then have your VS Code on the left, so you can kind of see both at the same time.
Yep.
Or, yeah, either way, it doesn't really matter which side is on which.
That works.
You can close up the browser a little more. You don't really need a whole lot of space. We're not going to be doing a ton of complicated UI stuff.
All those pixels.
Yeah. So now and also since you did the Git thing, you're going to be able to see what is being added every time we generate. So you see how your web folder is green and has a green dot next to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, follow the green dot.
All right. Can't get lost from that.
Yeah.
All right. So we have some very familiar React code right here. Simple
basic
template.
component. Has you set up with a link there as well, so you can kind of see how we do our routing. And so that is what's called a named route function. So it's route.home, and then it's got the parentheses.
Yeah.
And then if you go over back to the left on your folder structure and scroll down and keep scrolling until you see routes.js, a little too far. Yeah, so it's in the web folder. Yeah,
there we go.
And so these are when you generate when you do the generate page, it's also.
Sorry, GitLens was asking for authorization, and I don't know if I want to give authorization access to my GitHub org.
What is GitLens?
I don't know, but Redwood in the container, the .vs code folder, installed it for me. So I'll have to look into that before I start accessing
this must be
GitHub
stuff
org.
around what Aldo's doing with the Redwood ID, because I've never seen any of this stuff happen before.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to, at the end, I'd love to fill me in on what, I guess, the high level of what that is. But
I wish I knew.
Wish you knew? Okay, maybe I'll join the Discord and
we
stalk.
can talk about it for sure. I've got knowledge of it, but I'm certainly not the expert on it at this point. The only expert on it is the person who wrote it. Okay,
excellent. Well, speaking of experts,
so just take a look at that route file. So you're going, yeah. So there you go. So this is kind of why Redwood has like its own routers, because that's a really nice flat routing structure, so you can just see your routes just like that. So where it says route path, it has / and then page equals home page, and then the name is home. So the name is what you use the named route function. The page is what maps to your component, and then the path is what does the path. So should be fairly comprehensible. Like I remember when I was learning like React router, like it did not make any sense to me at all. Like I could probably hack it today, but like at the time it was just like there was just no chance of me creating any sort of React application with it, just because it was such an extra layer of complexity to learn. So having a really nice router built in, this is why I love Next, this is why I love Nuxt. They also have really great routers that do maps your components to your pages and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, enough on the router. You don't really need to think about it. That's the whole point. So
yeah, excellent. I mean, that's great, because like that's part of the reason why I even use things like Next.js is that I just love out of the box, everything works. I have like a pathway I can just start shipping code. And again, it goes back to like open source. I wish I had a framework to get stuff done really quickly, and I really don't want to build my own framework, which is why Redwood comes in handy.
Cool. So let's just go ahead and generate our next page. We're going to generate an about page, and then we'll route them together with a layout. So you're going to do the exact same thing, but generate page and then about, and you're not going to specify a path at all. So you're just going to type about right there, and it's going to then create an about page component, and it's also going to create an about route. So if you want it to be the same, then you don't need to specify the path.
Okay. Excellent. And I just saw my about page just get added, which is nice.
There you go. Yeah.
So now I have about.
Yeah, and if you do like Command F and just search about, it'll highlight like inside the browser.
Yep.
This is a good kind of demonstration of like what's happening here. So you see how everywhere it says about, that would have said home for the home page.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of see like this is what it's a template. It's just a template, you know.
Yep.
It's not super complicated. And like if you get into this kind of stuff, you want to start building your own templates for your own generators. Like that's a thing you can do because they're not like super duper complicated.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, looking forward to moving on this pathway. So we have an about page, we have a home page. Yeah, what's next in this sort of tour through Redwood?
Yeah, next we're going to generate a layout. So instead of yarn Redwood generate page, you're going to do yarn Redwood generate layout.
Okay, now I'm going to ask what the difference between a layout and a page is.
So a layout is what's going to wrap our pages. So if you have a nav bar, if you have a footer, if you have anything like that, you have layouts and also things like Gatsby and Next and other. So your front end, your web folder should be fairly similar to what you would get from like a Gatsby or Next in terms of how it gives you pages and layouts, and then some sort of like kind of data fetching, which will be the next thing. So we're still going to keep kind of building this out. So now we're going to call this a blog layout. So just type the word blog and then go ahead and run that command. And in our web folder, we had a pages folder, a layouts folder, and a components folder. So you go ahead and close up your pages folder for now. Open up layouts. Yep.
And now we have a blog layout. Makes sense.
Cool. And then this is a decent amount of coding, so you should just grab this from that. Do you still have that Git link that I sent you?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we're going to do now is basically we're just going to create 2 links to our home and about page and put in the layout. And then we're going to use the layout to wrap both of those pages.
Sorry, and I have your Git link on a different machine, so I'm going to have to type it in manually.
I got it right here. How can I just shoot you a link?
Drop it in the Twitch chat.
Yes, there we go. And this will probably be good for other people if they all look at this as well. This is basically the script that I'm going off of right now. This is from a meetup talk I did for JS Monthly. Yeah, and so keep scrolling. You'll see the commands that we already did. There's all the generate pages, generate layouts, and then grab that layout. Yeah, so don't go too far. Don't spoil things.
Oh. Oh, okay.
You're gonna let them know how to build Redwood too soon.
Okay, yeah, so we got this, and then this is the copy pasta right here.
Yeah, just grab that whole sucker, and then I'll kind of explain what it's doing. It should be pretty standard. It's just some kind of basic semantics for getting your nav bar there.
So I have a
so just the blog layout.js. Yeah, so there's also the same thing, storybooks and tests and stuff like that. So where it says children in main, that's where your page is going to come out. So whatever we have written in our homepage or about page, that's what's going to be inside of that children thing. And then above children, it's so scroll up a little bit. Yeah, so that's just going to be link to your homepage and then link to your about page. So it says Redwood blog. It says we're building out the Redwood blog example.
Yeah.
Cool. And so go ahead and save that, and then nothing is going to happen. Nothing is going to change in our project, because what we have to do is we have to actually bring in this blog layout into our homepage and about page. So you can go ahead, if you want to copy paste it, you can go back to that Git thing, or I can just walk you through it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
So all you're doing is you're importing the blog layout, and then you're wrapping it.
Okay.
So you're just wrapping home with blog layout and then a closing blog layout tag.
Okay. This is quite familiar, and I'm curious what this approach to Redwood's approach, and sort of this kind of feels a lot like Jekyll. I haven't used Jekyll in quite a bit, but being able to
from the same creators, Jekyll, so that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Maybe everything's just. I guess if folks have come from the space of, and man, here we go.
Yeah, and you're not going to need the links and routes imported anymore, because those are now imported in our blog layout.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so you're just going to basically delete everything under that.
I think I could close this to give myself some space. All right.
Just make sure you're still exporting, but yeah.
So I don't need this stuff?
Yeah, you don't need any of that. And then you can get rid of the imports at the top for link and routes. And you got a stray tag over there on the right.
Yeah, I'm trying to... Oh, there we are. All right.
Cool. And then, so now if we go back to our home page, that should be good. You're on the About page right now?
Yep.
Great. And if you click About, then you're not going to see it because we haven't brought in the blog layout to our About page yet.
Okay, excellent. So I'm an expert at this point.
Yeah.
So we can...
Yeah, this is what I was saying about how the tutorial is set up in a way where it's not just like how do you build a Redwood project, it's actually how do you learn like what Redwood is. So that's why like I really like this sequence of introducing people to it and like starting with the pages and then going into the layouts. And so far we haven't done, you know, anything with the database yet. And so you don't have to think about that until you get to that point. We haven't done anything with, you know, deployment yet, even though we got the Git repo set up because I know where we're going, so I can make sure we're set up for that. But at the same time, you don't really have to know about how you're going to deploy this until you get to the deploy step at the end. So it's about giving you the information you need when you need it, but not giving you more information than you need where you are.
Yeah, so it looks like my my nav links on my layout, I got to add a home link.
What do you mean?
Like, oh no, I'm going home. That's right.
Yeah. So the Redwood. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the home link is just the top.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah. So you can create your layout however you want. This is just kind of how I'll walk you through.
Sorry.
In the tutorial.
I'm trying to create some redundancy. Trying to take advantage of us not having any test.
Okay, cool. So that is basically like the front end piece for now. Now what we're going to do is go into our API folder. So we haven't looked at our API folder at all yet. We've just been in the web folder. So in the API folder, we're going to have DB and SRC. So pop open DB and go to schema.prisma.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so what's happening here is Prisma is what's called a next generation ORM. I used to have to explain to people what a query builder was because they refused to call themselves an ORM. They now have conceded to calling
using
themselves
the term
an ORM.
Okay, yeah.
So an ORM is an object relational mapper. It writes SQL, so you don't have to. That's all it is. It's this pretty simple concept just because no one likes writing SQL. Maybe some people do, but I don't know them. So.
No, I'm good.
Yeah. And what's really cool, though, is not only does it write your SQL for you, it also maps to the specific database you want to use. Right now, it is just relational databases. So if you see where it says at the very top, provider SQLite. So we are now, so up one more.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah. Yeah, so right now we are using SQLite because we're in development. At the very end of this, we're going to flip that to say Postgres and then deploy a Postgres database. And that is literally all you have to change to go from SQLite to Postgres is you just change that word there. That's all. And so leave it as SQLite for now. And what we're going to do, yes, you want to leave that as SQLite for now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to change because we're going to develop, and so we actually have access to our database on localhost with SQLite. SQLite's a good database. It's really lightweight. But then at the end, we're actually going to spin up a Heroku Postgres database. So that's when we want to switch that configuration.
Okay.
And then we have the Prisma client. You don't really have to worry about that. That's what's doing all the mapping from the objects to the relations. The really important thing is what's on the bottom where it says model user example. So this is your model. If you ever heard of MVC, model view controller, that's what this is the model we're talking about. It's what is going to create your table. So you're eventually going to have a Postgres database with a table, and that's going to be a post table. And so you're going to change the name there from user example to post.
What line is this?
So it says model user example, line 16.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and then the ID is going to stay the same. Right now it's set up for auto incrementing integer, so it's going to start with 1, and then the next blog post will be ID 2, so on and so forth. And then change email to title and get rid of the unique constraint. And then create another line and have it say body. Or actually, no, sorry, rename name to body.
Okay.
Yeah, and then get rid of that question mark at the end.
Question mark means it's optional?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, because it's the opposite of, because like we have an exclamation point in a GraphQL schema, it's non-nullable, it has to be there. So yeah, the question mark means it's optional. I learned that from Jason, actually. I learned with Jason. So he was like, what's the question mark mean? I was like, I don't know. And then add one more line.
One more line. There we go.
Beyonce is blocking my view, but you're going to do created at.
Thanks for the follow, by the way. I can't pronounce that name, Lek Amix, but sorry, created at?
Lexamix. Yeah, created at with so capital, the camel case.
Okay, gotcha.
So capital A for at, yeah. And then, this is the line I need to make sure I don't mess up. So then go space and date time, capital D, capital T. Yep. And then space and at default. Yep. And then parentheses. And then inside the parentheses, now, just the word now, and then parentheses again. So what that's doing is it's taking the now function from JavaScript and it's setting the date time to whatever the time is when we create this. So when we create it, it's also going to give us a timestamp as well.
All right, excellent. And
cool. So that is our host model. And what we need to do now is we need to create a migration that is actually going to be applied to our database. So we're going to go back to the terminal. So
let's
keep
just
that one
do
running
that.
still. Yeah, so pop it up in a new terminal. Yep. And now we're going to do yarn Redwood, and now it's going to be DB for database. And what's happening now is we are going to be reaching into the Prisma CLI. So right now, when you're learning this the first time, you kind of just like, oh, cool, like Redwood is just like, let's use magical box and does all this stuff for you. But a big part of what Redwood actually is Prisma. And you can actually build a Redwood project without Prisma. I've done that with FaunaDB, but you won't have any of these DB commands. These are all Prisma-specific commands. If you want to bring in your own database, you're going to lose all this kind of functionality. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're, depending on how you feel about ORMs or not, is going to very heavily influence how
remind
you feel
me,
about
does
this.
Prisma have a hosting service too, like a hosted database service?
So no, Prisma has actually gone the opposite direction. They started as a hosted backend as a service back when they were GraphQL, and they have slowly gone further and further away from the hosting to being kind of just a pure database tool. I have no idea how they actually make money these days, but they have a big company with lots of people, so they seem to have figured something out. But yeah, there's There may be some sort of hosting options, but for what we do with Redwood, you just need like the Prisma library. Like you're just using the open source components of it. I know they're going to start building out more paid features in the future, but as of now, like you don't really need to. The only thing you're really going to need is the Prisma docs. You're going to spend a lot of time with Prisma docs.
Real quick, just for the folks who just joined us and the folks who did follow too, I didn't catch you when you came to the raid. We're building a RedwoodJS app. It's a Fullstack Jamstack app. Anthony here, he's part of the open source team, advocate team, and sort of walking me through building my first Redwood blog. So that's what we're doing here. And one note about Prisma too as well, like open source is actually, it was a GraphQL app. That was the original tool that I used to build it, was GraphQL.
That's cool.
When they migrated to Prisma and sort of said, hey, we're not doing this whole GraphQL hosted GraphQL anymore, I was like, okay, I'll figure something else. And I ended up going with OneGraph to make sure that the thing still worked. But I haven't actually had a need to use an ORM-based, well, at the time they didn't call it ORM. I kept talking to Johannes and saying, like, are you guys building ORM? Because that'd be great for JavaScript. And he's like, no, it's just Sting, and like there's hosted. You can provide like AWS or Azure, and they have all this other feature set. But I really like where they're at right now because I spent a whole, sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but I spent an entire YouTube video talking about my goals for 2021. And databases is one of them because I feel like Prisma is the glue between a lot of these database tools. And you can see like with Redwood, I know Blitz also integrates with Prisma pretty well.
So Bison. So this whole span of frameworks that we're calling FSJam, like Prisma is really the enabling technology of all of them. They all have really unique kind of stacks in terms of like the CSS they use and the GraphQL client they use. Whether they even use GraphQL at all is a question, but what they all do have in common is they all use Prisma. So and when I talk to other people like Rails developers, like current Rails developers, they're just like, I can't do JavaScript because you guys have an ORM that works. Like you don't have anything that even comes close to active record. And so the idea with Prisma is giving active record to JavaScript developers.
Yeah. But yeah, we can go back to doing this migration because I think we got off the rails a little bit. But
so db save will be the next word.
Yeah.
And then space, and then inside double quotes write create space posts. This is just to give your migration a name.
Okay, interesting. I was going to ask what that was. And then go ahead and enter.
That should be it. And so what's that going to do is in our DB folder now, we're going to see a migrations folder get created. And inside that migrations folder, if we go to the README, we can actually see the SQL that it generated. Yep. And so right there where it's your post table. So yeah, so it shows you the diff also. But just scroll all the way up. And then, yeah, right there, that's what you're going to look at. Yeah, so see how it says create table post, and then ID, integer, non-null, primary key, auto increment, title, body. So this should look fairly similar to what we wrote with our model, even though it is SQL. It's not the Prisma kind of schema, but it should map pretty well. And this is actually, if you don't really have a ton of familiarity with SQL, this is actually a good way to kind of learn SQL because it generates it for you. You can just kind of go look at what is the SQL actually doing.
Yeah, and this calling out one more time, this is so similar to Rails. Like, almost eerie how similar this is. And I think the Redwood team, like they sort of this, I remember when and I keep asking you what the name of Redwood was before it was Redwood.
There's a lot of names, actually. I've learned more since the last time we talked.
Okay,
so
it's like
Hammer.
Hammer.
It was called Hammer.
Yeah.
Before it was Hammer, it was called Chainsaw. And before Chainsaw, there was simply an exploratory repo called Der Spielplatz, which is German for playground. So that is the history of the name. Yeah,
so like I've seen at least two of those names in passing because I remember the Hammer JS when it first was announced, like, and I think a blog post or Hacker News or something, and people were like, "Oh, this looks so great," and then like I sort of forgot about it, and then that Redwood's around, and you reminded me on the podcast that Redwood. Welcome, found the command. Also, maybe I should turn that down just a little bit. But yeah, what was I getting at? Yeah, anyway, this is almost like it's like a merge of all my previous lives in Worlds all into one stream with you. Like GraphQL, Prisma, Rails.
This is how I describe it to people who know all these technologies, like someone who's lived it. I say that Redwood is if Ruby on Rails and Jekyll had a baby, and then that baby and React had a baby. That baby is RedwoodJS.
Okay, that sounds like an amalgamation of something very scary but beautiful.
Yeah, it's scary if it didn't work.
Yeah. So yeah, we have migration. So that means that we already have a SQLite database that's running.
So now we need to apply the migration. So we haven't actually set up the table yet. We've just generated the SQL that's going to be applied. So the next one is just going to be yarn redwood db up.
Yep. Space up?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, this is fascinating. So did I already have a database running when I started the Yarn Redwood's dev?
So it had the Prisma client already running, and then this is what actually gets your database up and running is the db up command, I'm pretty sure, is what did that. Yeah, this is the kind of internals that I'm not super duper tight
because
with,
back in the day, you do Rails DB migrate, which I'm curious why they didn't choose the colon. And then you do, like on the Heroku side, you'd be like Heroku, like if you were hosting on Heroku, basically, it'd be like Heroku Rails DB create or up or something like that. It's been a long time since I did Rails app on Heroku. Well, at least I've worked with a lot of them, but I haven't created a lot of them. So like at GitHub, we have a lot of apps that I've touched, internal tools but I wasn't around to get it up and running, so I forget what it is.
Yeah. Okay, so what's funny is the next step is actually the Railsiest part of this whole tutorial that we're about to do. So get ready.
Excellent.
So it's going to be yarn redwood generate. And then it's going to say scaffold. Scaffold has 2 Fs.
Yep.
And then space, and then post. And so this is going to scaffold out the entire blog post. And the famous Rails demo where he's like, look at all this work I'm not doing. This is all the work that we are not doing right now.
Yeah,
so
and I just saw their
page. We're going to go /posts. There's not going to be a link to it yet. Well, you actually don't want a link to it because this is like your admin UI essentially. All right, and
beautiful.
just follow along. That should be fairly intuitive.
And this is a Bootstrap. Looks very bootstrappy.
Who uses Bootstrap?
Oh, this is Tailwinds. It looks very bootstrappy. This button. Excellent. That makes sense now. First, and then words. And there's my blog post.
Yeah, user craft in the chat is saying how he loves CLIs. If you love CLIs, you're gonna love Redwood, let me tell you.
Yeah, this is amazing, and this is what I want. So you've watched me struggle through trying to build this sort of open source contribution engine here on the stream. Like, I want to build it on the UI side and then go host it somewhere. And I've been struggling through, like, I figured out how to use Supabase because I eventually want to build something with it. I just don't know if that's the project for it. But yeah, this is how my brain works. I want to just run a bunch of scaffold commands, get some databases migrated, go deploy it somewhere, and then start doing some Tailwind UI stuff.
Yeah, no, it's super cool, and it's like, it's aimed exactly at devs like us, and I think that's why when I introduce this to devs like you with the experience you have, like you say, it kind of integrates all the tools you've already been working with and figuring out how to stitch together yourself. And that's why I'm always saying, like, nothing Redwood is doing is revolutionary. Nothing it's doing is groundbreaking. It's just giving us the things we actually want.
Yeah, that is 100% true. And yeah, so am I looking at like a admin interface? Where I'm now.
Yeah, so you can edit it, you can show, you can delete. If you hit the delete button, it'll give you a warning asking if you're sure you actually want to delete, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and if you also see, so right now, look at your URL. So you see how it's / or /1.
Yeah.
So that's because of the ID. So create the ID and also creates a page for you as well.
Gotcha. Okay, excellent. And yeah, from this point, yeah, what is next to do?
All right, now we're going to get into cells. So cells is how we do data fetching. So if you've ever used React Query, this is probably going to look pretty similar. But if you've ever used like, basically if you've ever like used Axios or the Fetch API and just written a million different conditional statements to say, if I get a success, I'm going to do this. And if I get an error, I'm going to do this. And if it's empty, I'm going to do this. And if it's loading, I'm going to do this. It does all that for you. So we're going to do yarn Redwood generate cell.
Okay.
And then space, and then blog posts with capital B for blog and capital P for posts.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, and that's it.
So.
And then this is now going to be in our web folder and our components folder. So we saw our pages folder, we saw our layouts folder.
Yeah.
Now we're going to look. Yeah, so web, yep, SRC, components, blog post cell, yep.
Okay.
All right, so right now, hover over that arrow you've got at the top. So not that one, sorry. Blog posts, yeah.
Okay.
So here it says, cannot query field blog posts on type query. Did you mean posts? This is because our schema right now, we have a schema definition language. So let's look at that, especially because you have a lot of GraphQL fans in your. So this is in our API folder. So close up DB.
Okay.
And then in SRC, I think it's the GraphQL one. Yeah, there we go. So this is our schema.
Got it.
So we have a post model, and this is what was generated for us by the scaffold command, and it should look very similar to the post model that we created in our Prisma.schema and the posts table that we saw in our generated SQL. It's just a post, has an ID, title, body, and created at.
Yeah.
And then below that, we have our query, which is our posts query, which returns an array of post objects. Okay. We can also search for a single post by providing the ID, and then it's got all your CRUD stuff in there as well. So this is all wired up in your components that allowed us to have that blog UI on the left. So if you want to kind of poke through all of this code and see how it's all architected, you can figure out what all this stuff is doing. And that for me, it was a great way to just like learn some like good React practices and good GraphQL practices, and how to get, because the blog is also an example to do app as well. So there's a lot of really great applications as well that you can poke through.
There's something to say about that too as well, where like I learned all these tools separately when I had to learn them, but the fact that you could actually have all this stuff wired up by a bunch of scaffold commands is just mind-boggling. Like, I wish you forced me to build something with this much sooner, because I feel like I've wasted a lot of time building a ton of other stuff.
It's almost like I've spent the last, as long as I've ever known you talking about this every single day or something.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, yeah, I mean, not that I'm not busy enough and have enough projects, but no, I'm just like, what am I doing with my life that all this stuff now is connected, all my worlds are conjoined in this one project.
Dude, just wait till we get to the deploy step, man.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, great. So let's go back to our cell now. So that I just kind of wanted to show you like how we were getting that error message and how it knew what we actually wanted our query to be. So now we're going to change that where it says blog posts just to posts.
Yep.
And it'll be lowercase posts. And then scroll down to your success. Actually, first, can you actually bring your terminal down? Let's just look at this whole cell and let me actually kind of explain this more clearly, since I kind of gave a high level explanation. But so scroll up so you can see the whole thing. So there's just kind of two things you need to think about here. There's your actual GraphQL query at the top. So we're defining a query. So export const query equals GQL, and then has a backtick.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's just basically, if you ever use GraphQL, that should be pretty standard. Your queries are just kind of like strings that you're throwing over the wire, and then your backend knows what to do with it. And so what we're asking for right now is we're just asking for the ID of the posts. So we're gonna keep it like this, and then when we actually see the data, we're not gonna see the title or the body. We're just gonna see like ID 1 and then the type of the thing it is.
Yeah.
And it is going to handle the loading state. It'll just say loading. If you want, you can put a spinner in there. You can change that to however you want, but it's going to know whether it's loading or not, and it'll know whether it's empty or not. So if instead of empty, you want to have a link to create a blog post like we had in our UI, that's kind of the idea of the empty one. Yeah. And then failure, it'll just spit out the error for you. Text gives you the error message, and then that success, change that both of the blog posts to posts so it matches the query.
Yep.
And right now it's just using JSON.stringify, and this is a really nice default because it guarantees that when your query works, it's just going to spit out the data for you, and then you can kind of do all your React-y mapping over stuff, which we'll get to in a second to actually make it look like a blog.
Yeah.
So
okay. Excellent.
Now we're going to go back to our home page. Make sure, it's safe, I think.
As in the web browser, right?
Both.
Okay.
Web browser and your editor, yeah.
All right, yes. This folder structure is nice that I know where stuff's at. But then also...
and if you already know where it's at, like it's literally never, ever going to change. So that's also nice.
Okay, but what folder am I looking for? I'm totally blanking on...
Yeah, so web component, or sorry, web pages, SRC.
Got it.
Yeah,
there we go.
And then close up your components, yeah.
There we go.
Page, home, yeah. Yeah, it does take a little while to get used to because there's a lot of folders and it can seem a little overwhelming at first, but it is organized in a way that once you kind of get the whole mental model, you can go where you need to go really easily.
And the beauty of this is I bet there's like great VS Code plugins, because the one thing I loved about Rails is I would just, if I wanted to get to a route or a controller or the database migration, I could just do really quick Vim key bindings because everything is named the same thing. So I imagine if it doesn't exist, I bet it's super easy to create Vim bindings to make, well, I'm saying Vim because I use Vim at night and VS Code during the day. So if people are confused, this is not Vim.
Cool. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to import. So keep the blog layout import there, but just right under that, we're going to do import. Yes, just add a line under that. Yep. Import blog post cell, and then each of those words will be capitalized. Yep, it's blog posts.
Post.
Yeah, because we're going to be rendering multiple posts. Anytime it's post or posts, there's a reason why. And so, like, you have a post component, you have a post component.
Yeah. Real quick, programmer says, beware, you're about to suffer framework lock-in, which I think I might be. This might be the framework I use for the next at least 6 months. And then Than is, I don't know if you were here earlier, Than, but yes, Redwood is... It's like BlitzJS, but how would you compare BlitzJS and Redwood? And you mentioned Bison as well.
Yeah, I would say most people aren't really going to know too much about Bison, so to not really confuse things, let's just talk about Redwood and Blitz.
Yeah.
Redwood and Blitz are both full stack frameworks that are both using Prisma as your ORM. So on the surface, and are both using React as their front end. So on the surface, people look at these two projects and they think they're essentially the exact same thing. But as you see, like, GraphQL has been a huge part of what we've been doing, right? Like, you're writing a GraphQL query, you have a GraphQL schema definition language. Like, GraphQL is doing a ton of stuff for you right now, right? There is no GraphQL in Blitz. So all the stuff we're doing with GraphQL, they do completely differently. So they're actually not similar at all. They have almost nothing to do with each other. If you look at the code in a Blitz project, the code in a Redwood project, they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. So the fact that they always get compared so much, I think is kind of funny. The closest thing to Redwood is not Blitz, it is Amplify. AWS Amplify and AppSync is almost identical to a Redwood app.
Interesting. Okay, but the difference, Amplify is not open source, correct?
Amplify is an open source library that lets you spin up resources on AWS. Okay. So, like, it's kind of what do you mean by open source exactly?
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a wonderful tool. It's a genius tool for AWS to have a pathway to easily get stuff up and running. But did they have also? Well, they have a CLI. I'm not sure about the scaffolding and all that other stuff, but
so that's why I say the Amplify is a CLI. So Amplify is a CLI that lets you generate AWS projects with things like AppSync. So AppSync is a managed GraphQL gateway. So that's what's doing the GraphQL stuff and kind of approximates. We talked about this in the Contributor Summit, actually. And so Amplify is like the CLI tool that stitches together a lot of your projects, and so it gets your AppSync GraphQL API mapped to a DynamoDB database. So it's doing a lot of the same kind of stuff that you would get from a Redwood, but it's only for AWS. Like, so that's actually, that has a much stronger framework locking, because Redwood, you can deploy Redwood on Azure, you can deploy your front end on Netlify or on Vercel. So there's lock-in the sense that the Redwood project is obviously very specific. Like, you can't just port a Redwood project over to Next. You have to figure out how to connect Prisma to Next to do that. So sure, there is a certain element of lock-in, but it's very portable in the sense that it can be deployed anywhere. And it's also mostly just spitting out static assets in a lot of ways too. So yeah, it's the lock-in question is an interesting one. I also think as Redwood gets better, it's like, are you afraid of being locked into something that's improving? Like
Yeah, and when I see this website with Amplify, it's my first time being on the site in a long time, but it feels very much enterprisey to me. I'm not sure what's going on here.
Redwood is in beta. We're going to be hitting V1 in close to like 2 months. So if you're still waiting for Redwood to be out of beta, yeah, you'll probably still want to wait a little bit for that. But we're very, very close to being like totally like production ready and ready to like hit the ground running on that. So yeah, keep your eyes out. This is a good time to start kind of like learning it, wrapping your mind around it, because it's going to get to the point of being like really, really battle tested and really stable very soon. Like right now it works, like it's very battle tested. The thing is just like we don't quite have pre-rendering figured out. We don't quite have all the TypeScript support figured out. Really, it's just like if we release it without TypeScript support, we're gonna get like 1 million TypeScript people yelling at us. So that's kind of like the biggest thing we're working on right now.
Yeah, but isn't there there's a bit of pushback, from the JavaScript community saying they're removing TypeScript because of the barrier to entry for so many projects? But anyway, I don't know if you saw that Twitter conversation recently.
I've been following the TypeScript conversation for like 6 months now. So like the TypeScript conversation, like this is not a new conversation. Like so it's a long and most of the Redwood team, they're not really TypeScript people. So we're all being asked to add types to Redwood while none of us really know how to do that. So it's been a process. We've all been learning TypeScript together. And someone in the chat saying they were using Next.js is great. And I agree, Next.js is amazing. And I would never talk down on a framework like Next.js because I'm working on Redwood. And there's actually people who are using Redwood as a headless API to a Next.js front end. There's people who've created hybrid applications using Redwood and Next, because we're still working on pre-rendering and things like that, and they have like static regeneration and all that kind of stuff. So there's actually a lot of interesting synergies that can be had between Next and Redwood.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Redwood being a placement, not a replacement, but if you were using Nest.js, which is how you could generate an API really quickly, because you have GraphQL and you have Prisma already connected out of the box, which is kind of a lot of the hoops that I need to jump through to even learn myself, and why I don't use them together is because it's just a lot of work to put it together. And then where I'm sitting right now, same thing I keep bringing up is open source. Is like I built the framework to build open source, but now so much other stuff has moved past where I was when I built that. So now I have to start thinking about, should I bring in a framework? I think Tailwinds, I don't think you can go wrong with Tailwinds at this point. But yeah, making those decisions.
You'll get Tailwind by using Redwood. We're not going to do this, but there's also a configure Tailwind command.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that'll be some homework for later. But moving along.
Okay, let's finish up this blog post cell. So what we need to do here is how you see how you're importing from src layouts blog post. So there's no relative routing. There's no period /. You're just going to specify the exact directory you need to pull that from. So it's going to be src /components / blog post cell. And you also get that autocomplete there too, as you can see.
Yep. And then
just bring it in and stick it like under your H1, so inside the blog layout. So don't put it under the blog layout, put it inside the blog layout. And then just self-closing tag that says blog post cell. You should put it under, And then, so it's just going to be it's just a tag by itself. So get rid of the second one, and then add a space / inside blog post cell.
Sorry, I'm just looking at this.
Because the blog post cell is still broken.
Got it.
Go inside the blog post cell, and before the closing tag, add a space, and then a /.
Okay.
So that's a self-closing tag.
Yes. Okay. I definitely knew that.
Throw out a lot of terms here, so no worries.
I was totally thrown off by this being red and what this was happening. But you're teaching me how to code right now. This is hilarious.
So if you see now on the left, we can see what we're getting. So let's go back to our actual blog post cell, our homepage now. That's going to stay exactly the same. We don't need to do anything. But we can now change our cell. So it's in our components folder. Yep. The very first one. Cool. And so that's just the very top is add in addition to ID, title, body, and created at. Each one on its own line.
Okay, summary. There we go.
Yep. Cool. And then go ahead and save that. And now we see we're getting everything. And then there's going to be one more big chunk of code you're going to want to copy paste here. So go back to that GitHub link and scroll down to where it says success. So a little bit further. There you go.
Yeah.
So that's just going to map over our posts, set the ID to the key, set the title to an H2, set the body to a paragraph, and then stick the time inside a div.
Okay. So just by adding blog post cell, it's giving me the JSON unrendered. Which is actually something that I really like, because normally I would do like I would have to print that to the screen, like through some other trickery.
So that's what I meant by the JSON.stringify is a really nice convention. So go back to your blog post cell. So inside the actual file. So where it says success, and it says return JSON.stringify. So that's why you're getting the JSON. This is something I didn't notice for a while. And then I was like, wait a second, that's like the perfect default. That's exactly what I wanted.
I mean, that's exactly, because now I know exactly, I don't have to go to, like normally I would open up the console.log, I'd log that, I'd make note of everything that's there, and then I would finally get stuff put on there. But now it seems like I can just add the blog post. Well, whatever the name of the object.
When you get an error, it shows you the error right there. So you don't need to go to your console to see your errors either.
Oh, yeah. That's nice too as well. This is too good. And I realize my success, get rid
of that. That's going to go inside our blog post cell.
Okay.
So go back to the blog. No, so get out of this. You're in the wrong place entirely.
Actually put this here. Got it.
Because that's what we're changing. So get rid of that whole thing, what you're copy pasting right now.
Oh, that's amazing. Because this is a component. I'm thinking this is some other type of witchcraft, but no, it's a legit component that now has my blog. That's amazing. No, that's pretty good.
Now we gotta get this blog on the internet, though.
Yeah, this is true. So we should honestly probably should commit this, just because this is a working product and we can review this later on.
We're gonna have to commit again after we do the deploy command, though, as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just do the deploy command, and then we'll do that.
And then we'll have to also change the SQLite to Postgres. But yeah, those will be the last two things we need to do. So it's going to be yarn redwood generate deploy. All right, this is what I was on Learn with Jason. He was just like, oh, come on, Redwood. And then space Netlify. That's it.
Oh, that's it?
So that's going to create your netlify.toml. I'm sure you're very familiar with netlify.toml. Toml being another thing created by Tom. Tom's obvious minimal language.
Yep.
And so let's go ahead and just look at that too so people can see what happens. So go all the way to the left and scroll down. Scroll to netlify.toml.
There we are.
Right there, yeah. So this is just our build commands. It does your yarn redwood build, and it also sets up your Prisma stuff for you, publishes to a dist folder, and it also has your functions set up for you. So if you're using serverless functions and things like that. And then it's got your redirects and all
also
that
has
stuff.
no DB client because we're deploying only the front end separately.
Correct. We're going to also deploy a Heroku Postgres database, and that we're going to use an environment variable to connect the front end.
Yeah, absolutely genius. And I am loving the Netlify here. And again, I was sort of gushing on how I'm about to have framework lock-in, but folks know that my former employer is Netlify, so like all my stuff is there.
And if you typed in the word Vercel instead of Netlify, it would have got you set up for Vercel deploy.
Really?
So a lot of people think that Redwood's really tightly coupled to Netlify. That's actually not the case at all. You would do this exact same workflow with just changing the word Netlify to Vercel, and then your Vercel setup will be completely good to go.
That is amazing. And are there other providers that have the one keyword command for deploying?
Not yet. I'm working on begin. You can get render going pretty easily, but we don't really have a tutorial for that one yet. And then you could do it with like the serverless framework, but if you know how to use a serverless framework, like I don't really probably know how to get a front end set up. So
yeah. I know how to use the service framework, but yeah, I would totally, I totally like this Netlify deployment that you got going on.
All right, we just got one more thing to change.
Yeah.
And that's going to be back in our Prisma schema, which is in your API folder. So DB, Prisma schema, not migrations. Yep, so schema.prisma.
There we go.
And then where it says SQLite, just change that to Postgres. It doesn't need to say Postgres SQL, just Postgres. Yep.
Okay.
All right, now we're going to commit and push all that up.
Okay.
And then what I usually do is I just would go to the Netlify dashboard to do all that. I know there's a Netlify CLI you could do it with. That's how Jason did it when I was on Learn with Jason. But it's just the dashboard just makes it so easy. I've never really felt the need to learn Netlify CLI.
Just like Netlify deploy. Because you have the TOML, which I don't even have it set up in here, so it doesn't even matter. But let's go to the dashboard so everybody can marvel at all the stuff I have on there. Actually,
yeah, so you're just going to log in, hook up your Git repo. Should be pretty standard stuff.
Let me go authorize. Been here before, and then I gotta give access to this repo, which we called open source Redwood.
Redwood.
All right. I only install certain repos I install with Netlify, so I have to manually add them.
I see. Interesting.
It's a security
You don't
thing.
trust your employer?
It's not that. It's I was actually in conversations with Netlify a lot about this change and trying to test it for them as they were making that switch over from give us everything versus give us just some stuff. So in my mind, while I was testing that, I just continued to only give access to just the little things.
Yeah.
And I think I just, I didn't even, I did that for nothing. Okay, now I've added it. Now I can save. There we go.
That's funny. Yeah, this is definitely a step I've not had before. So funny. Everyone has their own stuff. It's like going through this stuff with other people is so fun for me.
The TOML should already have my build command. Is that correct?
It should, yes. Not sure what's up with that.
What's the CF? No.
Let's go back to your Git repo real quick. Yes, that's not going to work. And then check your netlify.toml. Did you push everything after we did that change?
No, that's why it's not deploying properly.
Yeah, I've done this a couple times in my live demos.
Push. Yeah, so I have to deploy that again. But it's already connected, so now we just can retry that deploy.
Yeah, so it's going to give you a fat error there, I'm sure, already.
Well, it's because we committed, we pushed the generic Redwood site. Oh, actually, it is an error. Never mind. Let's just re-trigger that thing.
Yeah, no, because it didn't build anything at all. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just do that.
Were those build commands actually in there though?
Oh, you know what? Good question. They're not in there. All right. So normally, if I pushed everything, these build commands would already be there. But because I jumped the gun, now we gotta actually do this manually. Oh. Luckily, I've been here before, so I know what went wrong.
I think we've all been here before. I've been here before a couple times live on air, so yeah, definitely not the worst thing. Yeah, there's been times like my git command I would mess up, so I would just like jump into the repo and then create that Netlify and then like save it right on the git repo. I've done stuff like that too.
Okay. Do I need my functions also?
No, don't worry about any of that.
Because we're deploying the Heroku.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a plan to make this work with Heroku?
Y'all did.
Not Heroku. I meant the Netlify functions or Vercel functions.
Well, it's one of those things. Like if you wanted to write serverless functions, it would already be set up. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So there's a way to. So like we didn't talk about the services at all, but if you go on your service, you can literally just write a Lambda function and it's going to work. Like it is actually already set up for functions.
Okay.
But that's just not something that's just kind of outside the scope of what we're demonstrating here today.
That's good to know. Yeah, because I know like Next.js, because it's Vercel and Next.js, people don't know Vercel makes Next.js, so they have integrations that make that automatic. And I'm sure down the road there'll be Netlify plugins to make that work too as well.
Yeah.
I went blank. What am I doing? Let's see if the deploy worked.
Yeah, so it's going to take a while to build. So if it's been building for a while, that's good. All right, great. So while that's going, go to Heroku.
Heroku.com?
Yep.
Okay. I might be slightly nervous. I need to make sure I'm not logged into my GitHub account real quick.
Do your thing. Yeah, so all we're going to do is just spin up a blank Heroku project, and then you go to resources and add the Postgres database. That's all you need to do. You just need to get a blank project set up with a blank Postgres database. You can get Postgres databases for free. I don't know if you guys knew that.
All right. So real quick. Oh, I know how to do this. So it turns out I am logged into GitHub's account. So good thing I closed that down because I did not want to show everybody how GitHub's Heroku works. Not that there's anything important there.
Sounds super interesting. Now I want to know.
So yeah, now I'm logging into my personal Heroku account at the moment. Oh, and
Heroku.
Now I'm actually now I'm stuck because I'm two-factored, and the phone that two-factor is on. You know what? Don't tell my boss, but I'm just gonna deploy this to GitHub's Heroku account.
And you're gonna want to tear it down right after though, just so you know.
Okay.
It's not gonna be the route is gonna be totally open.
Okay. So
viewers aren't too malicious. We should be okay for the brief period of time it'll be open.
I do have a personal Heroku attached to my GitHub Heroku account. So we're just gonna do it that way. So let's go back to here. Yeah, because the thing is, I get free Heroku through GitHub because we pay for some sites.
Right, yeah.
GitHub.com is now deployed other places, but historically Heroku, Heroku was the original place that GitHub.com was deployed. So
I wonder where people are deploying it now.
I mean, like everybody else, we have our own cloud, but I think that's public information. Let's move on though.
Yeah.
All right, so I got Heroku.
Go to new.
Yep.
Yep. And then create new app. Call it whatever floats your boat.
We'll keep it consistent, except I'll use the abbreviation now.
Yeah, cool. And then go to resources, which you can't really see because it's a little too. Yeah, there you go. And then just type in Postgres for add-ons, and it'll just come up in the autocomplete. hobby dev, unless you want to pay a couple $1,000.
I can do the $50. The whatever they call it, the gold.
Yeah,
I know this because I have an app that's paying for the next level up.
And then go now to settings. This is it. The whole thing's set up. Now we just need the environment variables, and then reveal config variables.
Okay. So dangerous.
Yeah, right.
And then my database.
So this is why you're gonna want to tear it down anyway. So yeah, and then just copy paste that, and then we're gonna go back to our Netlify. That's all we need to do with Heroku.
Yep. Which is funny that which I lost my oh sorry, I actually accidentally deleted the browser that we had open. So everything we're starting all over.
Just go back into Netlify. It'll probably be finishing up its build right about now. Yeah, and then we're going to put the environment variable in, set a connection limit, and then retrigger the build. So first, let's actually look at the page so I can show you the error handling for the cell. So go to the website. So
oh, the website
link.
Itself.
Yeah, go to the website.
Yeah, I did actually see that in the little preview.
So right now, so that's why I say this is the cell doing your error handling for you right now. So it's saying you don't have, this is even a nicer error message than it used to have.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, core team, developers, contributors.
Yeah, this is a lot of like integration with Prisma stuff. So as you can see, like this is a Prisma error,
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to our Netlify dashboard and then deploy settings.
It's almost like I've been here before.
Keep going. Yeah, not in there. It's
environment.
Yeah.
Edit variables.
And then it's just gonna be database underscore URL, all caps. And then at the very end, hold on. So you gotta have a connection limit, dude. Duh.
I have a connection limit.
You know about connection limits? Yeah, so you have to make sure you're not connecting to your database too many times. So you want to just connect to it once.
Oh.
So if you connect to it a million times, you gotta run out all your resources. So at the very end, add a question mark, and then connection underscore limit equals 1. And that's it. You used to also have to add another environment variable that specified Red Hat flavor of Linux instead of Ubuntu Linux, and that we don't have to do that anymore. So
okay, excellent. Also, because I use things like Rails and everything that's sort of built in, this is probably the second time I've actually pointed to externally from a Heroku Postgres database. Also, hilarious that we're using Heroku Postgres, but not deploying to actually Heroku. Is that correct?
Well, the Postgres database is on Heroku. So right now, our front end is deployed on Netlify, and our database is on Heroku, and they're speaking to each other.
Yes.
So this is also why this is not technically yet full stack serverless, because you still have a server running a database. That's why you need Fauna to go full stack serverless.
Yeah, gotcha. Excellent. So
so let's go ahead and retrigger that build, because that's going to take still a couple more minutes before we actually can see the final product. Because we added the environment variables, go to trigger deploy on the right and deploy site. Don't clear the cache.
Yeah, it's almost like I was the one that put that button there and then forgot it was there. Literally, I'm the one who put that button there. Or that drop down.
I use that button a lot. Thanks for that button.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the design system, so I didn't really do much. Just pointed the API and the Redux to it. All right.
So once that's done, that's it. We're gonna be finished. So you got any questions while that's building out? Anything else in the chat?
So my question is, so I don't actually do like Heroku, like git push, Heroku push or anything like that?
No.
So
no, because what's happening is you already have your database set up, and the environment variable is what lets you talk to it. So anytime you do things in your front end, like it's going to just send those commands straight to your database.
Yeah, which is why I should shut that down once we're done here. Excellent. Or create a new one that's private.
Anyone is going to be able to go to this route. And like, so when we did this with Jason, like we created it, and then like 10 blog posts appeared like immediately, One was like, I like turtles and stuff like that,
That was amazing. I mean, for the tutorial, it makes sense. But yeah.
Well, actually, and this is also when I say I'm running through a condensed version of the tutorial. In the tutorial, you do auth. So you end up bringing in a private route. You end up eventually get a login form, and you do protect your whole admin UI as well. So that's part of the tutorial. That's just like to explain Redwood in one go for someone who's never heard of it. I think it's kind of a little out of scope, so that's why I usually skip the auth step.
Yeah, and I think let me pull up that link again for folks. All right, can you drop that link again to the tutorial in case folks are watching now and missed that link?
The full tutorial or the one I'm going through?
The one you're going through, actually.
Okay. It's in there, yeah.
And if you have the link to the full tutorial, that'd be super appreciated in case folks do
Yeah,
want
I
to.
mean, everything you're ever going to want, you can find on redwoodjs.com.
Gotcha.
I will grab the link. But yeah, we've done a very good job of centralizing everything on the website. Anything you're ever looking for should be very easy to find on the homepage.
Even better.
And also, we have links to our Discord. Highly recommend people come check it out. It's a lot of fun. We also have a forum where there's a lot of really great long form written content about Redwood. There's a lot of great writers in Redwood. A lot of people are really passionate about writing, like myself being one of them. So yeah, if you want to like learn more about Redwood, if you like think like how do I connect Redwood to like Neo4j.s, well, there's a blog post for that actually. So like there's all these community contributions going on as well that are really awesome, and like we love to get people involved. Like we love to. I'm someone who, you know, as I kind of said, I was like a boot camp student who just came up and thought it was cool and started contributing, and they saw what I was doing and said, hey, like come party with us. All right. So now it should say empty if everything worked.
Excellent.
Now go to your /posts again and create a blog post.
Beautiful. You can tell what I've been typing. Hello, this is first.
It's another thing I do when I do presentations. I clear my autocompletes first.
Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. Not that any of that was.
Go back to the home page.
Okay. Yeah, none of that data was. You would understand well in that form data, but here we go.
There's your Redwood blog on the internet.
On the internet, pointing to a Postgres database, which is, again, like I assume you could probably use like Hasura or Supabase or anyone else that has the database.
There's a blog post about Hasura integration. So yeah, someone is actually on the official Hasura site. That was a Hasura employee did that.
Okay.
And we have a Microsoft employee who showed how to do it with Azure Postgres. So if you go to the awesome Redwood repo, we have a whole storage section which shows all the different ways you can deploy the database. Yep.
Excellent. That owes I owe that.
As you can see my name on the top there because I'm kind of the person who maintains this.
Okay, excellent. And then you said databases.
Yeah, so there's stores. So you see Heroku Postgres, Azure Postgres, S3. There's my Fauna Post. There's the Supabase one. If you want to get into Supabase, then there's the Neo4j one, and there's probably even more than this actually. I haven't updated this in like a month or two.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, and that seems like... See, this is what I needed with when I was running through Supabase, is that I didn't want to have to do all the scaffolding and build all my tables in the database. I wanted this point data to it, and it sounds like the way we just did the Heroku Postgres thing, like we would have just created an app, pointed it to Netlify, the data just works, which... I mean, that's amazing. And honestly, I'm not paying for the Heroku one, so maybe I'll just keep it there. Just kidding, boss.
But yeah, that's another thing. It's like everything we've done like is totally on the free tier. Like nothing here has cost us a single cent. Like it's open source technologies. It's using services from companies, but on the free tier. And you can get really far, like even to the point where you can start building a company. And if you architect it correctly, like you may have like runway for hundreds of thousands of invocations of these functions before you start getting charged. So this is kind of that whole like serverless by default thing. It's like it's a step change in terms of like what developers can do with the resources that are available to them. Yeah,
I mean that's amazing. And I mean honestly, I feel like I'm kind of locked in at this point and sold on this. Mainly the GraphQL piece was nice. The database side was really nice. But the scaffolding is where I'm at right now. I build a lot of projects on the fly. As you know, in DevRel, we have to build a lot of projects really quickly to prove a point, basically. So being able to scaffold something really quickly, and you're mentioning authentication, which I'm curious in how that works.
Check out the auth providers we got. So look at that's all the auth providers. There'll be a walkthrough for each of those to integrate. So, and it's like a lot, and this can kind of be like a lot of meta layers because right now you can do Netlify Go True and you can do Supabase. Supabase's is Netlify Go True.
Yeah, which is like if that's the choice of your database usage, then like you have best of all worlds in the one place. And am I correct that is there like a scaffold command for getting that connected, or are you just pointing?
Yeah, there is an auth command as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, y'all have really thought of a lot of stuff to get stuff up and running. So, you said a couple months you're coming out of the beta.
Yeah. So the goal is I want to put a date on it. We have a date in
Oh
mind.
yeah, don't put a date on it. You'll be
It's
people
more of a
hold you to
symbolic
it.
date is why we think it'll be a good date, not so just because we want it to be the deadline. But yeah, I would say end of Q1. I would say around the end of March. That's when you should be looking for a V1. If it takes us a little bit longer to get to April, there'll be a good reason, but we're not going to take much longer than that. That's like kind of where we're heading and where we want to get. Tom was saying how he's like, originally he wanted to do it by the end of last year, and he was like, well, we decided that we don't want to put something out when it's not ready just because we create an arbitrary deadline. So we've created a second arbitrary deadline.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, this is insane that it was so easy to get this thing up and running. I mean, obviously, this is like super watered down blog, but you said Tailwind config is going to be super straightforward. So like just adding all that stuff in there, like I think all my work is done. Just connecting stuff.
And also, if you ran, there's also like a test command too. So you can start doing tests right now as well. You already got your tests set up, So yeah, like so many things.
Oh, and does the test command, is that connected to is that testing, like unit testing your data and your models, or is that also
so it's like when you're running the generate command, every time you generate a component, it just kind of generates you just like a single test to make sure your component's rendering. So it's not super complex kind of testing step. It's just basically like gives you TDD over, so you already have a passing or a failing test. That's kind of the idea there.
So I mean, but that's all I need because the thing is, what I need is I need to have a file there, and then I'll write test. When you have to go back and create files and then create that sort of the actual TDD test, or even just getting started, that's why people aren't testing, is because the how much setup and config you have to do to get up and running. So.
And there's a question in the chat about the framework stripping out unused libraries. Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly can't say whether I know how much code splitting is being done or is not being done here in terms of like what is being done kind of like in the build command. I know there's lots of talk about the bundle size and trying to optimize it. And we spent like the last 6 months trying to figure out a way to not have to use Apollo because the Apollo bundle size is too large. So like this is always something people, it's thought about a lot in Redwood. Like there's a lot of people working on it. That stuff is a little bit above my head at this point. But if you have questions about that, feel free to just hop in the Discord and just be like, hey, what do you guys do for like unused libraries? And someone deeper into the code base can give you a more coherent answer than
I mean, obviously the performance is going to be pretty quick because we get an update on the page. I guess we'll have to find out with some existing sites that do have a little more complex structure. But out of the box, I mean, it's rendering these words really quickly, so that's great. I mean, not much to measure there, but for folks who are interested and you do have a site that's up and running on Redwood, you can actually check it out here. I'm curious, do you have as we talk about this too as well, are there examples of people who are using Redwood?
So if you go back to Awesome Redwood, actually, there's a section called Production Redwood Applications. So keep going. Yeah, we just go to the top. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
This is actually a little bit out of date. Like, we don't have Everfund on here right now. Everfund is actually probably the largest company using Redwood right now. So actually go to Everfund. Actually, just Google Everfund UK. And then, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so this is my buddy Chris, who hosts the FS Jam podcast with me. This is it's basically like Bitly for donations, kind of like you create like donation links, and so it's so that's kind of like this is built with Redwood. And then there's repeater.dev is another good one to look at. Repeater.dev is background jobs as a service, I think is what it's kind of called. And this is built by Rob, who built the tutorial actually. And so the idea here is, it's like, actually this is pretty funny. Yesterday I was with Michael Chan. He's doing this project called lunch.dev, and they were just trying to figure out how do you like trigger a Netlify build every day. And so like we ended up like figuring out how to do a GitHub action with like a cron job in it. And it was funny, like when we were doing it, I was like, I bet Brian can help us with this. I was like, Brian's the GitHub action whisperer, so. Yeah. And but we ended up getting it working, and it wasn't super complicated, but the thing is like having scheduled jobs that run based on triggered events in the Jamstack just seems to not really be a solved problem yet. Yeah. And so that's where things like repeater.dev come into play.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and you can do a scheduled GitHub action and run Netlify deploy as long as you provide your keys or a toml or something. But yeah, this is
Yeah, you do a build
great.
hook is how we did it.
A build hook. Okay, yeah. That's right. That's probably even better. A better idea. Honestly,
Yeah,
I
that
think
was my
someone
idea, so.
tweeted that. Someone tweeted that like 6 months ago, and I think I provided my feedback, but I think Jason actually came back and came back with a better a better use case. But yeah, this is great, and I can't wait to start writing blog posts here.
Cool. Yeah, and what's funny is like, the blog post, the blog is really great to learn Redwood, to wrap your mind around. It's like as you said, like not only was this easy to like build out, but it was comprehensible as well. Like this is the big deal for me, is that before I was doing this, I was trying to build literally anything. It just like didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And so by having a very well-known, very easy project with a simple mental model allows you to not have to think about like what is a blog. You can just think about what is Redwood and how does Redwood work. This is not really a good use case for Redwood. You shouldn't really build a blog with Redwood. You should use a static site generator to build a blog because you don't need a database. That's kind of like the whole point of the Jamstack.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're trying to build a blog, you really shouldn't use Redwood. It's just a way to learn Redwood. It's really more so for like heavy interactive data intensive type manipulation applications. So that's really kind of more so where it's aimed at.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find Yehuda Katz. I don't know if you know Yehuda Katz, but he's the used to be a maintainer
Ember and Rails.
Yeah, he used to be a maintainer there. He actually had a tweet recently about to-do apps, and I think we moved away from. I don't know if you remember this, but Adi
I think I found it.
Asmani. Did you find it?
I think that might be it.
Wow, you're googling on air. My
Google foo is strong.
Yeah, you're too good at this. Yeah. So anyway, his complaint was the fact that we are basically he's tired of the counter apps, and this actually comes from like the Redux example counter. It's like the go-to of how to like learn Redux.
Well, Yehuda's whole deal is he doesn't like the to-do application because it doesn't make his frameworks look good. That's why he hates the to-do application, because his frameworks aren't optimized for to-do applications. So it's like, sorry, dude.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the Ember tutorial is like they're sort of whatever their fast framework is for making Ember faster. They were using Octane. Yes. It's had a couple names, different versions, but. Yeah. This is the counter that everybody's been using for performance and getting React apps up and running. Even like one of my first encounters of React with Ken C. Dodds was like we built a counter from scratch, and it was amazing. But then we overused it, and so now he's asking for the return to the to-do MVC. Which is Adi Admani, who's part of the web dev crew. Actually, I don't know if he's on that team, but he's on the Chrome team, DevRel.
Oh, so he's actually saying he wants to go back? That's funny, because he used to complain about to-do MVC back when to-do MVC first came out. He said that was a terrible example. And now he's saying we need to go back to to-do MVC. That's really funny, actually.
Yeah, so this is a to-do MVC. And it was like a beautiful, like, Bootstrap or whatever UI framework to be able to test to see how fast you could create records in
I think
framework.
I think it's a great test of whether someone actually knows how to use React or not. And it's like, I think it's something you should learn. It's something that you should be able to do. So, it's not the end all be all, but I think it's definitely like, it's just a CRUD application. Like it's the simplest possible CRUD application you can do. And if you don't know how to write a CRUD application, then like you don't know how to do anything. Yeah.
But anyway, I bring this up because I know some folks weren't around when this was a thing, but these are all the front end JavaScript frameworks at the time that built a to-do MVC example, and it was like the go-to. So I don't know what the new go-to for example applications are.
There is a Redwood to-do app also, actually.
Is there?
You search Redwood to-do, yeah. Yeah, so there's 3 example applications. There's the blog, which the tutorial walks you through. Then there's the to-do app, RedwoodJS. Make sure you get RedwoodJS.
Yeah, the SEO is coming. Is it this one?
Yeah, just the first one, yeah. Yeah, example to-do. So and this is deployed somewhere as well, so you can actually look at it. Hold on. Got a link to it in the awesome Redwood repo. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Here, I just popped a actual example in the link.
All right. Yeah, this is.
Oh, wait, that's the blog. Hold on, sorry.
This is nice, though.
Example to do. I think you just change it to do. That should do it, actually. I need to fix that link on the. Okay, no, that's not it. Sorry. I need to fix that link on the Redwood. Awesome. Glad I just found that. I know this used to be deployed somewhere.
Well, I can trust you. But yeah, anyway, going back to as you're looking for that, it's funny you brought up I don't know how we start this conversation. Anyway, I was thinking to Yehuda, who's still working on Ember, and his recent tweet from only a couple days ago. But outside of that, anything else you want to bring up? Some things that folks can get involved in? You mentioned the Discord, the forum.
Yeah, the forums of the Discord, definitely the big ones. I think that if you really are looking to get into Redwood at all, those are going to be like really good ways to do that. And I definitely recommend people go through the actual tutorial. Like, even though we went through a big chunk of it today, there's still, like, we didn't build out the contact form. So when you do that, you kind of learn more about like how you actually work with inputs and event handlers and all that kind of stuff. And then you'll also learn authentication as well. So you guys got a really great kind of primer on like the main Redwood architecture. And then if you want to get this to like a real world kind of app, there's like really only a couple more things you have to think about and you have to learn. And then you're pretty much good to go. You can start building whatever you want with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Viable Clan member is back with us today, and he was here on Tuesday. We just built a RedwoodJS blog that's deployed to Netlify. Please mind the UI; it's not there yet, but actually, this UI is beautiful. The post, but yeah, here's our post, and yeah, it's deployed on a Postgres database, and sort of just got this done. And I don't know how long were we streaming for? Like an hour?
It was about an hour and a half, but we spent so much time talking in the middle. We could have done it twice as fast if we want. I mean, I do this whole thing in 30 minutes when I do my talks.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you got this down to a science. And if anybody's interested in checking out the code, and if you don't want to watch the video, there you go.
Into Redwood.
Yeah, there's a project that's deployed right now on Netlify, and you're more than welcome to clone that. And actually, let's repost that tutorial.
And then I'm going to throw my Twitter in as well. If anyone wants to get in contact with me, my DMs are open. Always happy to talk to anyone interested in Redwood or anything else. If you're interested in StepZen, the new company I'm working for. If you want some sort of crazy serverless GraphQL API so that you don't even have to do any of the backend stuff of Redwood, then you could check out StepZen.
Excellent. So actually, since you want to give I guess you kind of just gave it a pitch real quick as your new job.
Pretty good, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So StepZen, I'm on my second day today at StepZen, so I cannot really make a super coherent pitch for exactly what it is yet because I'm still learning myself. But essentially, it is giving a really, really nice, easy GraphQL interface into a backend. So much like what we were showing here, you want to really just be able to write GraphQL queries. That's what the whole point of GraphQL is, that it was built, and Nick Schrock has said this in his original talks, that it was built around the concerns of front-end developers. That is the point of GraphQL. It's the entire point it exists. But it didn't actually simplify things for a lot of front-end developers because the front-end developers had to set up the GraphQL API also to use it in the first place. And so that adds a whole bunch of complexity, and that's where you get things like AWS AppSync, which is a managed GraphQL service. And so that's basically the idea, is we're just giving you that whole GraphQL API for you so that you can just write your GraphQL queries, that you can write just a single query that will get all the data you need, because they also have like directives and things like that. So they're also kind of building some of their own language on top, but as like very, very familiar to someone who already knows GraphQL. And I don't know if calling it its own language is entirely correct, but yeah, so that's kind of where StepZen is at. We're growing. We have 12 people now, and it's really exciting technology. It's from the team that did Apogee, which if you're like a new bootcamp student like me, you've almost certainly never heard of Apogee. It was like this API company that Google bought for like $500 million. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
So search Apogee, not Apogee.
Oh, okay.
So IGE, yeah.
I would not have pronounced it that way. Yeah, and there's tons of
So just look at the wiki one. Just go to the top and look at the wiki page. Yeah, so on the right.
Oh, there we go.
Your eye should always just be drawn to the wiki page. That's always going to be your most useful information when you Google things.
Yeah, I mean, you're teaching me today because I never look over there.
That's the first place I look every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go back to actually the actual wiki page. So
there we
Wikipedia.
go. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. this missed me. I'm not really familiar with Apogee, but it seems like it was before my time.
I just know that they're a bunch of very smart back-end dudes who are talking about lots of things I don't yet understand, but I find it all super interesting, so it's great.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Another opportunity. I know you're working with Brian Rinaldi, is that correct?
Yeah, so Brian Rinaldi works at StepZen. Yeah, so Brian, he was kind of the first original like developer advocate. I think I'm kind of like the second advocate they're bringing in. I'm also working on the engineering team as well, like actually building out things with StepZen. So I'm kind of in like a part developer, part engineer role right now, which is really cool.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I'm excited to learn more about StepZen. Always invited back on the podcast and here at Open Source Friday, Open Sauce Fridays. Actually, it was the Open Sauce Pizza Party. Why am I calling it Open Sauce Fridays? Because I've been doing way too much work today. Thanks for coming on, Anthony, and showing us how to build some stuff with Redwood. Folks, if you didn't get the links, they're all in there. You can always check out the back scroll here on Twitch. This will be actually on YouTube, and it will be in the Open Sauce YouTube account. So the best place to find that is probably the Discord, which I don't have the Discord up and read quick, but I think this command works. I wasn't prepared.
Famous last words.
Yeah,
works.
Yeah, there's the Discord link. You can find everything there. You'll find a link to the video when I publish it probably tomorrow up on the YouTube account. And Anthony, thanks again, and we'll see you around.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.